The king of Suns Twitter is joining us on the show today, answering your questions, talking through the offseason, and having some fun. All of that coming up right away here on Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back here. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm your host, Brendan Clean. I cover the Suns and the NBA at SB Nation as well as Dime Magazine. Follow me on Twitter at BrendanClean14. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On PHX Suns. It appears that our names are switched, so I guess I'm Sreekar today. You are Brendan. I am new to the software. I'm going to leave it. I'm just going to roll with it. But I don't know if King of Suns Twitter is right. I don't know if Crown Prince. I don't know what we should call you, but how have you been enjoying the offseason, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. You can just call me Brendan. That's totally fine with me. I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the offseason, having some time away from the NBA to fill up some of my free time and other activities is always is nice. And having a couple months to do that is, I'm cherishing it. I think the season was a lot. The way it ended was a lot, so it's actually nice to have some time to do other things and think about other things.
Yeah, it is. I have to admit, I noticed you've been taking a little bit of a break from Twitter, which I do not blame you for one bit. I've been trying to do the same as much as I can. I'm not great at it, but we all try. I'm curious though. So I tweeted out I asked for what ifs because yesterday I did a what if Wednesday. I talked about Eric Bledsoe, just getting through the offseason, but I noticed a lot of people seem to not necessarily be totally past the season because I asked for what ifs and there were a lot of very recent what ifs, which is not exactly what the question was. I meant more so the history of the Suns. Let's, dive deep. Let's have some fun. And it was a lot of what if the Suns actually got a damn backup center? What if Frank Kaminsky had played more, very much sour grapes. And so I want to just start there. Have you made peace with what happened in the finals and where is your head at here?
Yeah, I think I have. I mean, losing 4 in a row to end the season in the finals is always going to hurt. Being up 2-0 in the finals and feeling like they're going to take it home. It hurts. But I think by the end of the series, I was pretty convinced that the Bucks were a better team. The Suns had no answer for one of, if not the best player in the NBA right now, Giannis. And there were a couple chances, the what ifs go back to games 4 and 5, right? There were so many what ifs in both of those. Just in those 2 games, I could have swung the series the other way. But at the end of the day, I do believe the Bucks were a better team. And so I'm okay with losing to a better team. And especially when considering the fact that almost no one thought the Suns were going to go as far as they did, and the season was the best Suns season that I've witnessed since I've been a fan. So it's hard to complain about those things, but the sting of it doesn't go away when you start thinking about the finals.
No, that's true. The thing that stuck with me, I think more than anything, is that it's just super hard to get there. I think I that might sound really simple, and maybe as a Suns, fan or follower, people will be like, yeah, no, obviously it's very, very difficult. We've never been there before during this era or the previous era. So it's kind of obvious to say, but I think in the moment, I just was so impressed by the team and felt so confident that they had what it took. And then I'm and then an offseason passes and time goes on and you're like, wow, it actually it's never a guarantee. LeBron, everyone would have said he was probably going to be back there this year. The West looked, and then, things happen and it doesn't go that way. So I think that's the part that stings, but I do agree with you that the way that series will be remembered is Giannis sort of stepping up to the plate, taking the crown, taking the throne. So in that way, it doesn't exactly hurt quite as bad. But I mean, how do you feel? We've been through the offseason now. they didn't do a ton. I guess the roster's not complete. They still have one opening, but like, do you feel confident that there will be a potential for that to be our lives again next June? Like, does that seem possible to you, or are you worried that was the kind of the last one? I don't know how you feel.
I think it's definitely possible. I think the Suns will be one of the best teams in the West again. But like you said, it's never guaranteed. It's really hard. You have to have a lot of things break your way in addition to being a really good team and putting together a really good roster and having good coaching and having good chemistry and all those things. You have to have other teams have some bad breaks. The Suns were on the good end of sort of the injury luck this past season, and that is impossible to predict in any given season. So like, who knows how that looks and how the West looks next year? But I think it's definitely possible. I think my expectation for the team is for them to play at a similar sort of pace in the regular season, win-wise, record-wise, I mean. But I think Chris Paul might take a little bit of a step back or during the regular season with the combination of rest and just getting another year older. But I think I think that will hopefully be offset by some of the young guys, going a little further than they did last season. So I think in the regular season, I think they'll be roughly about the same. It's the playoffs where I think like it really matters at the end of the day. Now that they're a contender and they went to the finals, no one's going to really care what they do in the regular season this year. That was nice last year. It was a nice surprise. They were like a Cinderella story up until the playoffs began and then through the playoffs. But now no one cares what they do in the season. Like if they win 55 games, no one's going to be like, oh, cool, good for them. They lost in the finals. The only thing that matters is what they do in the playoffs. So I hope they make it far again. I think it's very possible. But I'm of two minds of this, right? So like one mind is like the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2012. Everyone thought that team was going to go back to the finals many times, if not, at least once the following year, and they never did again. And I'm not saying that the Suns are, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, but I'm saying that there's an expectation of a lot of fans saying like, oh, they'll be back. I think it's very possible, but it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's the example that I've used, and I think it's the one that a lot of people point to because, I mean, you said like they never made it back. Two of those players have never made it back to the finals, which is, it's further evidence. It's not even like the Thunder as an organization. It's like the individual players, despite how great they are, like they've never been there. So I think in that way, it just kind of shows that nothing's given, and you play in the West, it's going to be a bloodbath, all that stuff we all know. How did you feel about the offseason in general, though? I mean, they, again, didn't do a ton, but they plugged some holes. Like, did you like what they did? Did you wish they would have done more? How do you feel about what we just saw play out?
Yeah, I feel somewhat ambivalent, to be honest. Like, I'm not super energized by what they did, but I also don't think there were any glaring changes that needed to be made in the first place. I think like everyone thought, getting a better backup setter or like someone that could sort of step up and give them size. They did that. The way they went about doing that and sort of splitting the MLE between JaVale McGee and then not anyone else so far, at least, was a little weird. But I think JaVale McGee fits an obvious need. But I mean, otherwise, it's not super. I would say. I don't know. It's not like I'm not moved and swayed by anything they did this offseason. I don't think like that was a realistic expectation, to be honest, for the Suns to do. They just made the finals. Most of their core is very young, and I think they will bring everyone back. I expected that going into it. So I don't think we'll know really what this team looks like until sort of the trade deadline of this upcoming season. I think they will retain that flexibility and continue with sort of continuity and hope that helps and that chemistry helps. And then if they need to make a move, they'll make it in February or March of next year.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I mean, I'm pretty interested to see what Landry Shamet can do. I mean, he's not a difference maker necessarily as somebody that you think is going to take you over the hump, but I get the thinking there, at least as a fit on this team. So I like having the extra roster spot. I think that's a pretty nice thing to have when you are talking about the trade deadline and things like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, nothing really changed. And I guess the best you can say is like nothing in the West really changed either necessarily. Like it's not as if their competition, multiplied by 10. It's, pretty much what can Russ do? And like, do the Warriors miraculously look like, they looked 5 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. First of all, I totally forgot about Landry Shamet.
Forgettable.
Yeah, okay. it was. It happened early on, I think, before free agency, right? And I've just been, everything with the Suns just goes back to me thinking about the finals, and like everything that happened between the finals and like the Olympics is kind of a blur.
My listenership will agree with you, by the way, if that makes you feel better. No one was interested in spending any ounce of thought on the Suns for about 2 weeks. I can promise you.
Yep. I definitely was one of those people. But yeah, I mean, the Shamet move was fine. Again, I think it fits in the category of like fine, but not, doesn't move the needle for me. I think he's a good backup too, and I think he fits well with the team. I'm just sort of interested in how else, basically what else they have planned if they are trying to retain that last roster spot. And to your I mean, so I think the Shamet move, I think, is probably the most interesting thing they've done. And to your other point of like the rest of the West hasn't changed except for the Lakers. Like the Lakers changed quite a bit, and they changed so much that no one knows exactly how much better or worse they'll be. And we won't until we see them play a few games. So I'm not super worried about the rest of the competition. I think the Warriors should be better, but I think I've seen them be hyped up a little more than I think I expect them to be. Some people think they're the second best team in the West, which I think is pretty optimistic. I think they have just as wide of a variance window as any sort of playoff team in the West next year. So, and then the rest of the guys, like the Nuggets, Clippers will be worse without Kawhi. I just don't see it. And the Jazz are pretty much the same. So I think that's all of those reasons are why I think the Suns, I expect them to be sort of in the top 2 or 3 in the West again next year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think we've seen some like sports books and stuff hype up the Warriors just probably to get people's attention because it's kind of exciting for people to bet on the Warriors again. And
we haven't seen Clay play in 2 years. Like, I hope he comes back and looks like Klay Thompson because he's awesome. But like, who knows?
If the questions that the Suns' main competition in the West have to answer are, can a guy who has had 2 major injuries look like his peak self again, and can Russell Westbrook finally do it? I think you feel pretty good about that if you're a Suns fan. So I can't feel like, they're in a worse situation. I just think, it's a boring thing to say, but like you got to just sort of fast forward to October and see what it really looks like once it's out there. But let's answer some questions. We got a few on Twitter, a few on the Suns subreddit. So we'll get through those here as we close out the show. First, though, a quick word from SweatBlock. SweatBlock is the little secret to confidence right in your back pocket. If you're having a big meeting, a big date, maybe, whatever it might be, or in the Valley, if you're a local fan, you are just walking around every day and you deal with unwanted sweat, whether that is just the moisture or sometimes the odor that comes with it. It's a pain in the butt to deal with. It obviously makes things a little bit awkward if it gets bad and you want to solve that problem. SweatBlock is there for you. Again, little secret to confidence right in your back pocket. It's not like your typical deodorant. It's like a wipe. You just put it wherever that moisture is coming out, stop it in its tracks, and the problem is solved. They've tested it on firefighters in the thick of the action, and tons of people use it. Over 13,000 reviews on Amazon, and one of their more popular items for the past 10 years. You get to wear what you want to wear, and you can stow this wherever you need. Back pocket, toiletry bag, work bag, whatever it might be. It is there for you, and no one has to know, best of all. So if you or someone you love is dealing with this, has this issue, which really, again, is all of us. I don't really know of anybody who doesn't sweat. If you do, I think that might be more of a concern. So go ahead and check SweatBlock out to solve that problem. Stop the sweat in its tracks. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off at sweatblock.com, or check them out at Amazon and CVS. Okay, so the first question I got, which I just have to say, when I put out requests for questions, and this happens every single time, people like the tweet, upvote the post on Reddit, and then do not provide a question. It's like, I'm glad you're excited, but I wasn't just talking up my own podcast. I was trying to get you guys involved. So once again, I will just reiterate that. I say it after every mailbag. But the first question for you, Sreekar, is a question from Chris Manning, who's a fellow host on the network. His question was Hooters ? Fellas ? I guess I'll give you the floor to just do with that what you will.
I'm thinking yes and yes to both of those questions. No further comment.
Okay, I will. I will say that Gerald Bourget and I had your Go Sun tweet before each and every playoff game provided us immense joy in the media section. Just getting to see what pictures would be put out there and just inject ourselves with some good vibes prior to tip off. So I do have to thank you for that, but I will not require you to comment any further. The other question, that this one's actually kind of interesting, is it's from Suns 2012 on r/Suns, which is, his question is, how long did it take you to fall off the Dragan Bender bandwagon? How many years was it that you held out hope?
That is a good question. I think I was there for about a year and a half. I want to say some point during Dragan's sophomore season, I started trying to find a different ride to hitch my wagon to.
Man.
And then came along Josh Jackson.
Yeah. The memories that came. So I went to Summer League, and the memories of being in that arena, just sitting there watching basketball. I didn't even watch a Suns game live in the building, but seeing that arena, it was all Dragan Bender. Like every single thing that came back to my head, because it's been a while since I was there. Actually, obviously, Bender wasn't even on the team in 2019. No, he wouldn't have been on the Summer League team in 2019. But it was just like, I associate this court with Dragan Bender. Like exclusively, he is the man that I think of. I was on the bandwagon, I think, I feel like even coming off of that second year, going into the third when they declined his fourth-year option, I think even up to the point when he was signing with the Warriors a couple years ago, I was like, maybe, that's a good system for him. Like, we'll see. I might still have hope. I don't know if I'm even ready now to say anything. I was on it for way too long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure when he went to Milwaukee at one point, I thought he might figure it out. I was similar. Like my loyalty to Bender ebbed and flowed for sure. I think on the Suns, I was pretty much done after year two, but part of me still held out hope that, oh man, if he ever hits that shot consistently, and who plays smart defense, doesn't make
give it to him at the elbow, let him go to work.
Yeah, I was like, he could become a rotation guy on a good team. Maybe it's the Suns who suck, and Dragan Bender is secretly really good, and the Suns are just wasting him. Turns out both those things were true. The Suns sucked and Bender sucked, but fortunately, at least one of them has been doing better since that time.
Yes. We have another question from Suns 2012 on that same note. I will say, it's easier to laugh at the ineptitude now that we are beyond it, hopefully. But absolutely. He's a classic example of, like, everybody loves to say that the draft is all about situation, but with a guy who was so dependent on confidence, like this city of, desperation at that time, and this franchise being what it was, like, it just completely ran him into the ground. And I do actually feel bad. And I think that's part of the reason I felt like I wanted to keep having hope for him, is because if I didn't, that was just like a really depressing thing, that this guy's career just kind of crapped out because of the situation he landed in. But Here's the other question. It said, if there was one failed draft choice over the last 10 years that you wish most could have panned out, who would it be? Of the rebuild, who's the one guy that didn't work that you're most disappointed about?
I think Josh Jackson is it for me. Bender is probably second, to be honest, but Josh Jackson, I think I was more confident that he was, of anyone in that draft class, he would be sort of a high floor guy and like at least be a decent player in the NBA at the very least, and possibly a lot better than that. And I think heading into the draft, I was really confident that if everyone I believe wanted, at least Suns fans wanted Josh Jackson over Jason Tatum, including Ryan McDonough. And we all know how that turned out. But I think, I think that's the one I'm still most disappointed by. And I still have a little bit of hope that he saves his career if he can figure some stuff out. He's again showing flashes in Detroit, but
he's getting paid a lot more than I expected him to get paid. He's making like $5 million a year over there. So, hey, it's an opportunity. It's hometown. Like it's not terrible. Is it rude if I say Jalen Smith? I'm mostly kidding, but
it's a little rude. That's all summer league Jalen Smith for you.
That's true. All summer league first team. Yeah, I should put my tongue back in my mouth and get his name out of it. I'm disrespecting an accolade laden young man. No, I'm obviously kidding. I don't think we're there yet. I'm optimistic. Obviously, I think he has a role. I just don't think it's one that makes sense for this Suns team. Josh Jackson is probably mine. I mean, I think it's the obvious one because he was a really high pick. He came to the Suns with way more, pomp and circumstance than any of the rest of these guys did. Like Bender was a bench player for an international team. It's not quite, top recruit at Kansas. So it's very different. I'm interested to see what Marquise Chris becomes. I think we all follow all of these guys around and we all kind of like quietly root for them just so that it makes the investment we put into them maybe less sad. I'm not sure. But let's take another quick break here. We got one more question and then we'll close things out. I will maybe get your thoughts on some other things as well. I might have a question or two for you. I might want to talk about the Aztec jerseys. I'm not really sure. We'll see. First, though, a quick word from Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever, my favorite protein bar, and soon to be a member of our Valley community here for Arizona sports fans. Building a distribution center so you can get your favorite bar quickly to your house, or really, they're going to be everywhere pretty soon. And everything about them is always exactly the same. 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, and never more than 5 grams of sugar, no matter what flavor you might like. My favorite, of course, as I've told you before, is the double chocolate. It's rich, it's not too sweet, it's delicious, but limited time summer options, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream. So whatever your sweet tooth loves, Built Bar has an option for you. And you never have to worry about putting something into your body that's not going to be good for it, because these, despite how they taste, are not that sugary or anything. They are really light. You're not going to believe it until you try it. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. That's next order, not first order, so you can double dip if you've already used the code before. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Today's show also brought to you by BetOnline.ag. They have 4 deals for you heading into football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football all season long. The internet's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, as well as the world's biggest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, are open now at BetOnline. Start there. You can also, when you make your first deposit, use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a 100% welcome bonus. They are doubling that first deposit just to celebrate the football season beginning. And be sure to take advantage of the opening day super promo by making a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Bucks and the Dallas Cowboys. Even if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 when you use the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, as well as college and pro football all the way through the fall. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Okay, close out the show. We got a question.
That last ad read, I'm still so scarred that when you said Super Bowl champion Bucks, I was like, they won the Super Bowl too?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. They the same name team won both. Yes, I thought you were going to go in a Brady direction. I thought you were going to say it just scarred you that Tom Brady was successful at something. But maybe you're used to that. Maybe we're all used to that by now.
Yeah, I think I've just got a desensitized to it at this point.
It's fair. It's fair. I wish. I mean, look. I mean, I don't. Are you a Cardinals fan? Are you?
No, I'm not.
Are
I'm
you
a Niners fan,
okay.
actually.
Okay, I figured because you're not
only Arizona team I rep.
I'm sure you've told this story, but how did you become a Suns fan if you are not a Valley native here?
Steve Nash gets the credit and the blame. Never really watched basketball until I turned on a Suns playoff game randomly in 2005 and decided Nash was the guy and the Suns were my team.
It's fair. I think that's the story for a lot of people. Do you remember? Okay, this is a weird question, but I'm thinking back to some of those playoff games. Do you remember Red Brick Pizza, the restaurant? Did you ever go there?
No.
I don't know if they had them everywhere. Okay, so it's this pizza place, and there was one down the street from my house, and their thing was it was bad pizza, but they had a TV at every booth. So like you would sit and then they would have like a plaqued up TV at the end of the booth and then like you could watch. It was a small one just for like the table. And they would always play Suns games. And like obviously that period of my life growing up, there was a lot of Suns playoff games going on. And I don't even think we went there that long, but for some reason that often, but for some reason I always associate Suns playoff games with Red Brick Pizza. So there you go. That's my less exciting and people will know if they're from the Valley, they will know Red Brick Pizza. I think they're all gone now, but let's get to Berto Gonzalez's question. He added one over on Twitter. It's zooming along to this season. No more dipping into the rebuild, but who do you expect or hope to show a deeper offensive bag next season between DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges? Which are you more confident can build that up?
I'm more confident in Mikal Bridges. And I'll say this specifically for this question, because I think when people say bag, when they talk about shot creation, I'm like, can they have a variety of moves to get their shot off? And I think to answer that question, I feel more confident in Mikal Bridges because he did show more flashes of it last season. I think he found a way to get his mid-range shot off more and more consistently throughout the season. And I think he shot it better than Devin Booker did, which is insane. And the next step for him is like using those moves to get to the rim and like not being afraid of any contact at the rim that like he was many, many times. But I think bag-wise, I'm a little more confident in Mikal Bridges off the dribble. I think Ayton has a ways to go to like consistently take guys off the dribble. I think he can do it, and he's shown that he can do it against other big guys every now and then. But I haven't seen much of a bag from Ayton. I don't think people talk about defensive bag quite as much as offensive bags. So to answer that question, I'm a little more confident in Mikal.
Confidence is so weird, and we were talking about it with Bender. Like when we've watched Mikal for a while now, and obviously we all saw him at Villanova even before we thought he could be a Sun. Do you like truly, like if you're going to sleep and it crosses your mind, do you believe that Mikal Bridges can develop that confidence? Like if I just force you to put money on it, are you saying yes, that will happen?
The confidence to become like a 3-level scorer?
Yeah, the confidence, because I think that's all it is for him. Like I don't think there's any doubt that he has the ability to shoot and dribble, and I mean, he's going to be incredible at it. Is he Paul George? I don't think that, but like he can do it. Do you think he's going to develop that confidence to actually like put it into use in a game every night?
I think so, because I think we've seen the confidence in a shot increase in the NBA. I think he was, especially towards the end of his Villanova career, a confident college player, but first year and a half or so in the NBA, he was not a confident shooter. He would turn down shots. He had a hitch when he came into the league. Like he worked all that off, and I think he showed a level of confidence this season, and even towards the end of last season, that I think was already a step up in terms of like the shots he would take, some sort of pull up threes, fast break threes off on the wing and things like that. I think were signs that he is getting more and more confident. I think the one thing that will help with his confidence to take so for the mid range and pulling up there, I'm pretty confident that he will be confident enough to take those. I think adding more strength would give him confidence to like try and finish at the rim, which he doesn't do that often. Because I think he is a good finisher. He has good touch, but oftentimes he dribbles, and if he sees anyone sort of close to the rim, he like stops, picks up his dribble, and has to pass out, and that happens a lot with Mikal Bridges. And I think that confidence will come with like a little more strength, which I'm hoping he sort of picks up over the next couple of years. But that's the last piece of the puzzle.
I'm curious, like, I almost feel like I should bring like a sports trainer on or something to be like, what is it actually like for him to build muscle? Because I'm sure it's hard. Like his frame is not conducive to that. But like we also see guys like KD. I mean, he's a freak, so I don't know if he's a great example. But like there are thin guys who get stronger without getting more muscular, So I don't know what it's like. I'm genuine. Like I think Mikal's kind of sensitive to those questions at this point because it's been piled on him forever. So like, I don't know if he'd be super willing to like walk through that, but I'm curious because it's like, I don't even know if it's physically possible or what that would look like. I guess, like we'll see. Yeah. With no clue. We'll see. Okay. I don't necessarily people don't really like when I talk about DeAndre Ayton too much and criticize him. So I won't do that, but I'm curious what you think about the extension. Do you think it's coming? Do you think it'll be a max? Do you care what he gets? Do you have a preference? It hasn't happened yet. So what do you think? Well, what will we see?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I think if you asked me right at the end of the season, I would have said yes. The extension was coming and it would be a max. At this point, if I had to guess, I'd probably say it's coming this offseason at some point, but I'm a little less sure of it now, given that it's already been, over a month since the season ended. Has it only been a month? Oh my God.
I know. I'm already running out of ideas to do this podcast every day. And I'm like, free agency was like 2 weeks ago. Like,
that's insane.
How am I already here?
Yeah. Wild. Yeah. Time is strange. I'd still say it's probably coming if I had to guess, but here's what I'll say about a DeAndre Ayton max contract. I would feel very similarly about it like I have with the rest of the Suns offseason. That fine, but like doesn't give me a ton of confidence in either direction. That like the Shamet move, the JaVale McGee move, obviously very different types of moves, but the same sort of reaction to all of them. I think the way Ayton played in the playoffs was amazing. And I think like if that's the guy that is, the foundation for the Suns defense and their big man, and that's what he will continue building and growing from, I think that's a max worthy guy. I still think there are questions whenever you give a max to a guy that can't create his own shot. And I think like that's where sort of that bag has to come in over the next year or two. And I think very much, I think a max contract would be fine for DeAndre Ayton, but what you would want to see is that by the end of the contract, he will have sort of be a max guy, right? Like a full max guy. He will have continued developing on sort of both sides of the court, especially the offensive side at this point, enough to sort of be worthy of like a year 3 of a max contract. And I think like that's the hope. You're paying him a little bit for like what he's showed in the playoffs, but also for what you think he'll be in years 2, 3, and 4 of that contract.
It's just it's a whole bigger conversation, but it makes me kind of mad about the max because like there's no real, like, I understand there's like the all NBA and the Rose rule and all that, like your max, but like the idea that the contract that's sort of just a given for like Trae Young is the same contract that is because there's no more or less you can really do. It's like, I don't really know of a solution. We've seen all the other ways that it goes wrong of like guys will get these super long contracts, way too big contracts. Owners shoot themselves in the foot. Like I get it, but it's kind of weird. I don't think there's a great solution. I'm sure that's sort of what they're aiming for. I think the delay makes me interested as far as like if that's where this is headed, then why has it been a month, like you said, or 3 weeks or whatever it's been? I don't super understand the thinking there, because we saw a lot of three other guys get it right away, and then others not so much. So I don't know. I don't obviously none of us have any insight. If we did, then we wouldn't be so confused. But that's kind of where I land, and we're just sort of in a waiting period. But last question to close us out. I probably should have done this at the top since it is news, but whatever. Have you seen the Aztec jerseys, and how do you feel?
Yeah, I saw those this morning on Twitter. So I think they look cool. I think I like them just as a jersey and a kit. I have questions more historically. And I think these are questions that I'm not going to be able to answer, and you probably won't be able to answer. These are more questions for, I guess, Mexican Americans in Arizona and Native Americans in Arizona. I'm not totally sure, and I've seen some reactions to the jerseys that say this, that Aztecs were in Arizona, or I'm not quite sure how the history of that is relevant to like what they're trying to do with honoring Mexican Americans, as they said. In the Valley. So those are my questions. But I think I think what I'm equipped to comment on is whether they look cool or not. And I think
sure. Yes. And that box is checked. No, I get you. Just as like a person who doesn't know anything about that history either, I don't associate, like, growing up in Arizona and learning Arizona history, it wasn't really what we like talked about. I'm not saying that there's no people here who are like that, and I'm sure those people will let us know, and it'll be meaningful for that community. I do like it that it is not just like the old Southwestern like lassos and sombreros nonsense, because we've done that before, and like some of them looked cool, some of them looked fine, but it's not really getting anybody excited. And I think it looks a little bit silly to wear it on an NBA court and like go out there and try to win games, and you're kind of wearing a cartoon shirt. So in that way, it's pretty good. But this was fun, man. I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can do it again soon. And thanks for chiming in on everything. I know we've been missing your thoughts, so I'm glad I could provide them to the people.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate the invite. Glad I could come on in the middle of August, the peak of the NBA season.
That is that's what we do here every single day, at least for a little bit longer. Enjoy your Thursday, folks. Hopefully this pod holds you over. And if you're listening over the weekend, even better. Kevin Ray will close out the week on Friday, so you can look forward to that. Subscribe to Locked On Suns on YouTube or wherever you are listening. And I'll be back tomorrow.